Hey everyone, today I want to talk about how to actively and behaviorally make small changes to your OCD and anxiety recovery journey, the little things that we tend to let go to the wayside, why they matter more than we think, those little tiny disciplines. I talk about this topic a lot, and it really is important to cover because when you're suffering with OCD and anxiety-based disorders, it's really easy to let little tiny avoidance behaviors slip in. And then what happens is those little tiny avoidance behaviors become large avoidance behaviors. This is something that happened to me a lot. So I want to break this down in the video. So before I go any further, please subscribe, hit that like button, comment down below. Let me know if you have any questions. I go through and look at all those, usually about 10 videos back at a time. So I review the same old 10 videos for about a week straight and then kind of move on to the next one. So I go through, and anytime new comments come up, I do respond to those. And if you're interested in our coaching and webinar services, please email us at info@ocdrecovery.com and we will get back to you in a timely fashion. I got one of my coffee mugs, so my newer ones, which is the brass knuckle ones, which is a donut shop here called Hertz Donuts. Before the pandemic, it used to be open 24/7. I'm not sure if they're back at that, but a donut shop that's only like a half mile from my house 24/7 is a problem because I have no self-control around donuts. Life structure out the window. Okay, so we're going to talk about a recovery game plan, a beginning recovery game plan. So this is someone who has just started suffering chronically with OCD, maybe in the last 6 months or a year, and or someone who hasn't been doing the steps necessary to get themselves better, and they finally kind of hit that rock bottom where many mental health sufferers, OCD, PTSD, GAD, panic disorder, BDD, addictions, any type of addictions to drugs or alcohol, sex, pornography, or anything that's really kind of driven you to the bottom. You hit that rock bottom and you say to yourself, I'm going to do whatever it takes to get better. I'm not living my life like this anymore. What do I have to do to get myself better? This video is for you. This is for the beginning stages of the recovery journey. And again, this is for any type of recovery. So I'm going to make this video a little bit more broad. So it's not specifically just for OCD and anxiety-based disorders. So if you haven't seen my videos before, my name is Nick. I really suffered severely with obsessive compulsive disorder. I also had really bad body dysmorphic disorder. I also had really bad panic disorder and all the other things. But the labels don't really matter. What matters is my entire life was consumed by a mental illness. And the majority of it, I had a constant battle going inside my head all day long. I had multiple panic attacks a day, lots of avoidance behaviors and compulsions. If you hear my dogs barking in the background, I'm sorry. They've been going crazy today. So I have to do, you can hear them. They're going crazy. So when you start suffering with a mental health disorder or you're going through addiction recovery, and they will look a little bit different because when it comes to OCD and anxiety recovery, you're going to cut things cold turkey at once. Only a few amount of people are going to do this. Whether it's an addiction recovery, if someone's getting better from drugs, heroin, crystal meth, crack, and this isn't our specialty, but we do work with a lot of people who are coming off of opioid withdrawals, severe medications like benzodiazepines, crystal meth, crack, marijuana, and not from like, oh, marijuana's addiction, but just like the unhealthy usage of it. Cutting that cold turkey will look a little bit more different than the OCD and anxiety aspect of it. So it is important to say that. And then you say to yourself, well, I really don't know what to do because I've had all these behaviors that are holding me back. So there's little tiny things you could start with that matter a lot. So I was talking to someone in one of our WhatsApp groups. We have a network of WhatsApp groups that you can be put into if you come to a coaching call or webinar services. There's a couple dozen of them. We have people all over the world. It's really fun. And I was talking to a girl in there about how subtle, like not brushing your teeth are. You get home at night, you've had a late day, you say, I'm tired, I don't want to take my makeup off, I don't want to brush my teeth, I don't want to get in my bed, I'll sleep on the couch. And while there isn't inherently wrong with the couch one, I'm using these as an examples because these are really small, subtle avoidance behaviors in life that we do that really builds what's called the LFT, which is our low frustration tolerance. Now, a lot of people ask me, what is low frustration tolerance? Low frustration tolerance was coined by Albert Ellis, who's the creator of REBT, Rational Emotive Behavioral Therapy, which was the original CBT, but CBT today is a really watered down. We work with a lot of people who've gone to people that say, hey, look, 8-10 sessions, it's not a course. CBT, unconditional self-like other acceptance, are not stamp courses with certificates. They are principles from Stoicism and other Greco-Roman philosophies that have been around for 2,500 years and or longer, and take a lifetime of practice. This doesn't mean you're going to suffer for a lifetime. I'm meaning you will constantly need to brush up on these tools, not compulsively, but, I read Albert Ellis's REBT, It Worked For Me, It Can Work For You Too, which is an autobiography he wrote when he was 90. He's very active all the way up until he died. And he even said, he had to practice unconditional other acceptance at times because he's human and we're fallible. So those are the little things you want to look at. Your hygiene. Are you brushing your teeth? Are you skim reading books? This is a big one. Are you really impatient? Which you will be. Patience, building up patience is a skill. So, those are making your bed in the morning. A lot of these things I hear, you want to be very careful of black and white statements. Social media is very sensational based. It's very easy to pull you in. There's a lot of great marketers out there. And inside some of these really good marketing tactics, there are some really good points. But the reality is most of the best information I get comes from plain posts, where people are putting a philosophical quote. There might be a picture in the background. But when there's lots of yelling and music and changing of scenery to kind of pull you in, it takes you away from the message. And a lot of the messages that you see are quite superficial. You'll hear people say something along the lines of making your bed has no merit. And no, this is just simply not true. So if you wake up in the morning and you don't make your bed every single day, unless you are the 1% of the 1%, where you're so disciplined, which most people aren't, because discipline takes consistent persistence, perseverance, and hardship. This is not most people. So making your bed in the morning can be a valuable tool to teach you to start the day with a technique that can build your frustration tolerance. Again, I want to highlight this. Watch out for black and whites. Social media is becoming very, very dividing in black and white statements. And even when something has good validity in what they say, you want to be careful about how they say it. There's a lot of people I enjoy listening to, but their delivery is off, in my opinion, because they're very, very demanding or demeaning. And I can joke around a lot because, being from New Jersey, and like to talk shit and shop, as I say. But it's the demandingness and the demeaningness of how people state things. The reason why is that emotional control that we're looking for. And that's why people are so thrown off about, does this work? Does that work? So the bed's a good one. Your morning routine, you don't have to be super strict about things. Yes, having balanced nutrition is key. Some people like working out in the morning. You hear the stuff about leaving the clothes by your bed. Whatever that is, this is just a rough guideline. Again, whatever works for you. I particularly wake up at most days at 5 in the morning. I go to the gym. I'm usually there by 5:25. Sometimes if I have an earlier day, if I have a call at 7:30 in the morning, I will get to the gym at 5 on the dot, and I'll wake up at 4:25, 4:30. But that's rare. No, it's actually not rare. 3 days and a couple weeks ago, I had to do that. It's more common now than it was, but that's okay, because when I was in grad school, I had 3-4 days a week where I woke up at 3:50 in the morning. So I do like the morning. I've kind of fallen in love with that. This will look different. You hear a lot of stuff, you got to wake up at 4 in the morning. Again, black and white. If you like doing it, if you don't, etc. Consistency in your sleep schedule is probably a little bit better. Rob stays up till 4 or 5 in the morning and wakes up at 11, but it's usually consistent because he does a lot of one-to-one calls late at night because of our time zones. Your breakfast, stuff like this. Again, this is not about the benefits of fasting. It's just about what's your schedule look like, what's your routine look like. Are you just grabbing Hot Pockets every single morning? Are you skipping breakfast and lunch because you're so anxious? So taking a look at that. And some people like meditation. I don't recommend meditation in the beginning of an OCD and anxiety recovery journey because they're usually trying to do that to grip on, to decrease emotions. If you're getting better from an addiction, I know a lot of my friends. I have multiple friends who have passed away from addictions, unfortunately, including my ex-girlfriend and a lot of kids I went to school with. I have a lot of friends who are sober. 2 of my best friends right now are sober. One's coming up on 12 years from heroin. One's coming up again on, I think he's coming up on 16 months. And then I work with a lot of people like that. And it's going to look different for them. Because of that obsessive compulsive cycle is not completely latching on to needing it to go away, and meditation might work a little bit better for them. Maybe you want to read in the morning. I was one of those people that would wake up at 5 in the morning, and I would have my book here. It's the first book on the reading list, and I would go through and read that. 30 minutes, 30 pages. And before I go any further, it's really important to highlight when you say stuff, I can't, I don't, you have to be realistic about how lazy you're being behaviorally. There's no such thing as a lazy person, but once you realize that motivation and inspiration, which is really cool, holds the least amount of merit, the most merit comes from discipline, persistence, habits that you build through going through those phases, and then some people hit passion. But many people will never find their passions in their life, and many people will never be able to know what their true purpose is, because there's really no such thing as a true purpose. That's a lot of genetics, culture, where you live, time period, doing something long enough and you end up liking it. But this idea that there's a true purpose out there is not substantiated. You can't really prove it. So there's a lot of people that have fears of that. I'm just throwing in a lot of different insights in this video, things I've learned throughout my mental health journey and things I see when I coach people. So, after that, what's it look like? I want to talk about if you work from home, where we're living in an age where a lot of people are working from home. I personally do not think the average person works better from home. I think that's a complete myth. I think it's more based around comfortability. Yes, if you're a single mother and you're a stay-at-home mom, you have easy accessibility. Maybe you don't have to spend as much money, on daycare, etc. There are benefits, but the idea that people inherently work better from home is simply, in my opinion, not true. They dress lazier behaviorally. They get distracted easier. And all this happens at the workplace. But getting ready, like if you have a job with a suit, getting ready, putting a suit on, going to the workplace, driving there, prepping for the day, there's a lot of benefits in that. But unfortunately, the world is going to be different. A lot of people are going to work from home. I work from home in half of what I do. So I make sure, in the morning I'm dressed in pants, whether it's jeans, tucked in shirt, dress shirt, etc., in socks, paying attention as if I was at the office. That mindset stuff that people think doesn't matter, that does end up mattering. You don't even need research to prove it. Just anecdotally look at how your productivity is and take an honest assessment on it. And I would be willing to bet that most people's productivity is decreased when they're working from home in their pajamas. Just a reality. Most people don't like being told the reality of things. I always say that there's a fine line between, objective reality and then moving away from that. And the further you move away from that, which is thinking that there's universal fairness, thinking that people owe you things, thinking that people need to treat you nice inherently, this creates a whole different problem. So the workplace is another one. But you want to really look at the nutrition, the exercise, the daily chores. Are you doing your chores? Are you vacuuming? If you don't have a cleaner, are you walking your dogs? Are you taking care of your laundry? Are you shaving? I'm not there with people. But I can guarantee you, if someone's really suffering and I can take a look at their life structure, like from a female perspective, you might not be shaving your legs anymore or shaving your armpits. Guys might not be doing their hair anymore or shaving. They might not be cleaning their toilet or their bathtub. All the little things that you think are so difficult because you're so emotionally disturbed with the way you're suffering, panic, anxiety, et cetera, et cetera. Just little things, like things that add up to put... I always tell people this: you have a bucket, and that bucket is empty. It's a metaphorical bucket. And when you increase lazy behavioral traits, no matter how small they are, you constantly put coins into this bucket. And then you have a saving of a really heavy bucket of what the low frustration tolerance is, where even the simplest of tasks, such as washing your mug, feels monumental, which is going to happen to you anyway when you're trying to get better from an addiction, you're having withdrawal symptoms, physiologic withdrawal symptoms, and or OCD, anxiety recovery, trying to go through all that. So that's the main thing I wanted to talk about in this video, taking that clean look. I'm a goal writer on paper. Not everyone is. You got to be careful because everyone, the way people do this is a little bit different. People can be really consistent. I couldn't do this. I have my business in here, but if you go into the front of it, I have my goals. So these are my May goals right here, and I go through and I revise them and I look at them. This is something I really couldn't do in the beginning of my OCD and anxiety recovery journey because it came very compulsive. If I never wrote my goals down again, it wouldn't bother me too much. After a week of not doing it, I probably would forget. But in the beginning, I was really latched on to that. So this is something to be aware of. I do have my calendar here as well because I have multiple things that I have to do in my life. So I have, like personal things I have to do throughout the day, my OCD recovery stuff, my content, my TikToks, my coaching calls, and then my other business where I have a bunch of stuff I have to do. So, and then I have a scheduler in my computer where everything is logged in. So there's a lot of moving parts in my life. I also find time to hike, find time to read and journal my goals, and write articles and hang out with my wife and walk my dogs. And I still have lots of other time to do things. So you really have to be honest with yourself. The number one reason why people have a hard time getting to where they want to go in their life is because they've convinced themselves on social media. Usually social media is a big factor in it. that things in life are inherently easier than they are. And the victim mentality really has to go. So I work with a lot of people where they say, this isn't fair and that's not fair. I've been there. We have to pull ourselves out if we want to make progress. Life doesn't owe you a fucking thing. It doesn't owe you anything. And until you hear that and until you accept that, you're not going to get very far. Playing the victim mentality is important, but it doesn't get you anywhere. It does jack shit for your life. It's so important to cover that in a very tough love approach. Because, when you go on social media nowadays, there's a lot of things based around, take it easy, don't go back to work. And I just tell people, I'm like, look, I understand why you're not going back to work, but I'm just going to be frank with you. Until you go back to work, you're not going to really make a lot of progress. And if you work with someone who really doesn't like the vulnerability of applying tough love, whilst also applying compassion and empathy, they're not probably the best person for you, because if they're talking to you in a soft tone all the time and they're telling you that it's okay to take it really slow. Not really. I mean, you're just wasting time and your life is going by you. You're not going to be able to rush it, but taking action today. One thing I really like from Tony Robbins is where he says immediate action crushes procrastination. And I use that method on a daily basis. So thank you so much, guys. The summary of this video is take a look, an assessment on the things you're trying to do in the beginning. Look at those small behaviors that have gone to the wayside, the cooking, the nutrition, the gaining the weight, the not exercising, the rushing things, the being on your phone all the time, constantly scrolling TikTok and social media, getting into stupid arguments about politics, money, and religion on social media, with people you're never going to meet in your life. Look at your organizational skills. And just try to remember that motivation isn't coming. There's no such thing as the right time. One of my favorite quotes by Dan, I think let's say his last name is Pina. He's a little out there, screams a lot, very interesting guy. But he was asked in an interview, how long does it take for you to make a decision? He said 60 seconds. He said, I'd rather be wrong and learn from that than spend my entire life convincing myself why I shouldn't do it. And I think it's really important. Thank you so much, guys. Again, coaching and webinar services, 8:30 p.m. every single Tuesday, sometimes once or twice a week if we're doing like an ROCD part 1 and 2, acceptance part 1, 2, and 3, etc. info@ocdrecovery.com, and we will get back to you in a timely fashion. Have a good one, everyone.